So it was back in June. Obviously in June of 2020, we knew that COVID was a thing. I'd always been pretty healthy, no underlying conditions. And then around about the 24th or 25th of June, I started to feel, I wouldn't call it a fever, but starting to get hot, maybe some sinus stuff going on. So on the 26th of June, I got tested, and they were like, well, it's going to be maybe 5 to 7 days on results. It wasn't a rapid test, but at that point they said that rapid tests weren't so reliable as the tests that took longer to come back. So yeah, on the 26th of June, on a Friday, I didn't come to work, told my boss, Chris Egan, because I wasn't feeling great, got tested that afternoon, did a virtual phone conversation with the doctor. She worked out that I had some symptoms and got tested. And then it was a week later that it came back, 7 days later, that I was positive. And by then, you know, you've already been in quarantine for 1 week. So by the time the second week rolls in, the symptoms are disappearing and I'm feeling better. I'm just waiting on that 14-day mark to get retested so I could come back to work at Cox Media Group. And they needed 2 negative tests, or 1 negative test and a doctor's note, because the second test at that point took 10 days to come back. First test took 4 days. Symptoms were the weirdest headache I've ever had in my life, where your head wasn't throbbing, but if you touched it, it would hurt. Like anything, like putting a hat on, rubbing your head, it was like almost like a pressure headache. Lasted about 4 days. I was taking Tylenol extra because I thought, well, that will help with any kind of fever I was getting. And by the way, my temperature only spiked one night. It only went above 100 one time, even though I was feeling sweaty and waking up sweating. So the Tylenol extra did nothing to the headache. Took 2 days away from the Tylenol, like quit it cold turkey, so to speak. Took 2 Advil, and the next morning the headache was gone. The worst symptom was about halfway through the first week, my chest would hurt when I would cough or take deep breaths. And then in the middle of the night, I would wake up coughing, you know, as you do when you're congested or whatever. And the phlegm, I hope you're not eating right now, the phlegm that came up was like this clear, almost rubbery consistency phlegm with some specks of blood in it. And I was like, should I go to the emergency room or not, you know? The body aches in the beginning, almost like you had the flu, but then it was just like the energy was gone. You know, I'd never had the flu where I felt that tired and that just like, okay, it's either the bed or I'm going to sit on the sofa all day and watch movies. It was just miserable like that. So I had no energy for a week, no appetite for a week. It was just fluids the whole time. And I guess at home with self-care, I got through it, you know. But yeah, I wasn't feeling at any point that apart from those 2 nights when that was coming up, I didn't feel like I needed to go to the hospital because I'd had worse chest feelings from a bad sinus infection over the years. So pretty much every day I would be in touch with my boss, who's Chris Egan here, the program director of 97.1 The River. And he would just get an update from me every day, like, how's your temperature? How are you doing? We've got you covered at work. No worries there. I mean, my main fear was that I started to feel something a couple days before I stopped coming to work. So I really should have stopped coming to work 2 days before I did. But in your mind, you're like, oh, who did I interact with? I would have hated to get anybody else sick. So yeah, the stress of not knowing if you'd gotten somebody else sick, which of course you can't control, but it was there, the stress that you might have passed it on to somebody else that you work with, or somebody else you'd been around. We did keep contact tracing lists back then, and we still do. And so that was a way for my boss, Chris, to contact the people that I'd been in direct contact with over the last couple weeks before I got sick. And so, you know, it definitely helps to keep those lists, and it definitely helps to wear one of these, you know. So COVID-19, that's my story, and I wouldn't wish it on anybody. It really is a real thing, and it's really scary when you're in it. And I'm, you know, touch all the wood in the world, I managed to come through it and feel like nothing is wrong. Right? There's no lingering symptoms. If you think you have symptoms, or maybe you get tested and you're asymptomatic and you don't want anybody to know, you should let people know. You should do people that service by letting them know that you have it. Just don't get out there and spread it if you know that you have something. It's common sense. It's all about common sense, I think. And I think there's some people who think, well, herd immunity, I'm young, I'm fit, I won't pass away from it. No, but you might come into contact with somebody who does. So if you know something, say something, and maybe we can deal with this a little bit faster than we thought we could. I don't know. I know it's all a mystery to most people, and so many people. I mean, I've spoken to people that had the exact same symptoms as me, and I've spoken to people who had no symptoms. So it's crazy, but I'm glad I'm here, and I hope you're doing well. And yeah, it's no fun.